Do you want to do buy-to-let in 2022? Yes, it's a smart strategy, but only if you do it the right way. The old way of doing it simply don't work anymore. In this video, I'm going to explain why the old way of doing buy-to-let doesn't work and what is the smart way to do buy-to-let successfully in 2022 and beyond. So stay tuned. Hi, my name is Ranjan Bhattacharya. If you're new to this channel, where have you been? Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon. We put out new videos each and every week, all dedicated to keeping you on top of your property investing game. I've been investing in property for 30 years. You may have seen me on the hit Sky TV show, Property Elevator, or you may have attended one of our property networking events in central London. When I first got started with buy-to-let, it was easy. It was really shooting fish in the barrel. You could buy pretty much any old two-bedroom flat, rent it out the very next day, and you're making good old positive cash flow without too much work. But ladies and gentlemen, that doesn't work too well anymore. In fact, doing that sort of thing would be an absolute disaster for your long-term wealth. In this video, I'm going to show you by way of an example why, and also what is the smart way of doing buy-to-let in 2022 and beyond. So let's kick off with an example. So there are many parts of the country where traditional buy-to-let simply doesn't work anymore. I've got a deal example to show you, and then we'll get on to the smart way of doing buy-to-let in the same town. Now this property is a two-bedroom flat in a southern town in Hertfordshire, Rickmansworth. Now it's a two-bedroom flat in a purpose-built building. This is the sort of thing that would have been the staple in anyone's buy-to-let portfolio, say just 7 or 8 years ago. People would have bought these, let them out and built portfolios like this. But these days, this is quite hard to make work. So one of these two-bedroom purpose-built flats will set you back £425,000. The other thing that's changed when I got started doing this is the stamp duty. The stamp duty has gone up quite a lot. 24 grand you're in for. Now, that is something you can't borrow. I mean, you can get a buy-to-let mortgage, of course, on the purchase price, but the stamp duty is something that you've got to come up with cash to pay from day one. So this particular property will cost you £449,000 to pick up. What do you get out of it? Well, rents for two-bedroom flats in this area, roughly about £16,200 a year. But the problem is there's some nasty charges and costs that eat profit from these types of purpose-built flats. The main one being, of course, the annual service charge. So you have to pay someone to look after all the communal facilities, the hallway, stairs, landings, communal grounds, paint the outsides and all of that. And you have to pay a management company to manage all of that for you. And that can be quite a lot. In this case, £2,274 per annum. And there's a ground rent as well because it's a leasehold property. So that leaves you with a net rent per annum of £13,700 per annum. And your yield is a lovely 3%. Now, quite frankly, why would anyone bother buying this flat for buy-to-let in these sort of towns? And quite frankly, they used to, but now they don't. And unsurprisingly, that's one of the reasons why in these sort of towns where buy-to-let doesn't work anymore, there is a huge rental demand for these sort of flats because no new investor in their right mind would buy one to rent out in this way when you just produce 3% net yield. So how do you do better than 3%? Well, one option which many people have done is to go up north. Regular viewers will know that going up north for me is Edgware or Cockfosters. But seriously, folks, if you're serious about property, you've got to be able to make money in your own backyard. If you can't make money out of property in your own backyard, and by own backyard I mean within 1 hour's commuting distance of where you live, then how on earth do you really think you're going to make money 300 or 400 miles away from home? There are, of course, several disadvantages of investing in property far away from where you live, and I'll come on to those in a later video. By the way, if you're getting value out of this video, make sure you smash that like button. It helps us out on YouTube. Also subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on future video releases. The other ways people do better than 3% is to basically intensify the operations of their buy-to-let investment. So what do I mean by that? Typically, one method is to do the classic HMO. A house in multiple occupations. So with this flat, it's a 2-bedroom flat. So you would rent out each of the bedrooms individually and perhaps convert the lounge into another bedroom. So you've got 3 lettable rooms. You rent those out separately and you will increase the yield a little bit from that paltry 3%. The problem with that, of course, is that it takes more management time. You've got to take care of the communal areas. There may be additional licensing requirements that your local authority will impose on you. That means more cost. And you also have to deal with more tenant issues as well when you've got sharers sharing a space. And of course, many people get into serviced accommodation, which is short-term lettings as well. Now, it may be an option if you're using a management company to do this for you, but again, they will charge a significant fee for doing so, and that will eat into your profits quite significantly. But if you are planning to do this yourself, serviced accommodation is a very operationally intensive business. And by that, it means that it's not efficient on your time. What we want to do is do buy-to-let in a smart way in 2022, which is efficient on your time and delivers you great returns. So just how do you do buy-to-let deals smartly in relatively high value commuter towns or places in the southeast of England? So let's have a look at what else is on this street where this purpose-built block of flats is. We're going to spin round directly opposite to this shop and uppers. So we're in the same town, same street. It doesn't look very much, but it's a simple shop and upper parts. Basically a commercial building. So this whole freehold building was purchased for 500k through a commercial agent in late 2021. Of course, compare that to that flat directly opposite, which was 425,000 just for a leasehold flat in that purpose-built block. But directly opposite, you can pick up this commercial building, the whole space, the whole freehold of that asset for £500,000. Now, why is that? Well, in any area, you will find that commercial property per square foot is valued far less than residential property. You'll often find that commercial property is a third or a quarter of the price per square foot than residential property. The other interesting benefit is stamp duty. You'll notice the stamp duty payable is £14,500. On the cheaper flat directly opposite, remember we were paying £24,000 stamp duty. Now, I did a video on this a year ago on avoiding stamp duty, and I explained why this is the case. I'll put a link up to that video. You can watch that at the end. But the short reason why this is the case is that stamp duty on commercial properties are cheaper. And also, if it's a mixed use property, meaning mixed commercial and residential usage, you pay the commercial rates of stamp duty on that whole purchase. And remember, you can't borrow stamp duty. Stamp duty has to be paid for out of cash, so it's a massive saving. So the angle with this property is to do something with this upper space. On August the 1st, 2021, the government introduced a whole bunch of permitted development rights, which allow empty or defunct commercial spaces to be easily repurposed to residential use under a very light touch planning regime. Permitted development is pretty much in the bag if you know the criteria under which your application will be judged. One of the new permitted development rights that were introduced on August the 1st, 2021 was a right which allows you to make 2 flats above a retail premises. The great thing about permitted development is that it's a 56-day process. So you put in your application and within 56 days you get it, providing you've ticked all the boxes which are the same across the country. So when you enter in a deal like this, if you know what you're doing, you've got certainty that you'll be able to get the permission that you desire. So using that brand new permitted development right, we have secured permission to convert the upper space into two-bed flats. So let's take a look at what's happening here then. So your total costs end up being about £614,000. It'll cost you about 90 grand to make those 2 flats. The rent, once these flats are converted, the rent on that building will be a lot more, because you've got two-bedroom flats, and those 2-bedroom flats will rent the same as the ones directly opposite. So you're getting £32,000 or so in rental income from those 2 apartments. The rent on the shop is £17,000. The total rent is £49,400. So the yield on the whole building, instead of 3%, is suddenly 8%. And you're in the same goddamn area, yet you're achieving a yield which is significantly more than the property opposite. So you see, if you're living in the southeast of England, you don't have to go up north to achieve great rental yields. You don't have to do HMOs or serviced accommodation or other operationally intensive activities and spend a lot of time doing those sort of things. These sort of lets, when they're done, they're simple, they're let and forget. In other words, you give them to an agent or whatever and you let them out on single ASTs, nothing special, but you're producing decent yields. So the smart money in 2022 will be focused on finding these sort of opportunities, where you can pick up commercial buildings which are in well-located areas, knowing your permitted development rights inside out, knowing what you can and can't do, converting those properties into residential use and basically letting them out and achieving decent rental yields. Now let's look at the cash that you have to tie up in these sort of deals. By the way, if you're liking this video, smash that like button. Also, subscribe to the channel. We're going to put out a lot of content and some walkthroughs of this deal. If you like that Rickmansworth deal, we're starting work soon. We'll be doing some vlogs as we progress through that project. Subscribe, hit the bell icon. You'll be notified when we upload those new videos. So the thing with this 2-bedroom purpose-built flat is that it will tie up a lot of your cash. Let's just have a look. Okay, we're in for £449,000 to buy the thing. Of course, you'll get a buy-to-let mortgage. You'll get a buy-to-let mortgage and you'll typically get 75% loan and you'll have to put down a 25% deposit. Now, when I got started in residential property and doing these sort of buy-to-lets, it was slightly different then. We would get mortgages which were 90% loan-to-value or 85% loan-to-value in the main. But over time, the amount of deposit you need has increased, so you need a ton of cash. You've got to basically leave 140 grand of your cash tied up in this deal in order to do it. Well, what about this one? How much cash will be left in this deal at the end of the project? Now, you typically use bridging finance and all the rest of it to buy it. You may use development finance to do the works. And when it's all ready and let out, you would refinance it on a long-term commercial mortgage as a whole building. And at that stage, how much money have you got left in the deal? How much money of your capital have you got tied up in this project? Well, let's have a look. At the end of the project, you'd get a valuation on this whole building. Now, the flats opposite, they're in purpose-built blocks. They're going for 425, 430, that sort of money. Now, you usually find that flats above shops will go for a slight discount to a purpose-built flat. So that's why we've put in these valuations of about 375 grand for an equivalent 2-bedroom flat, which has the same space and size characteristics as the one directly opposite. The shop rents out for 17 grand a year, and you typically value that on a yield basis. In these sort of areas, to this sort of mom and pop type operator, you typically expect a 6.5% yield. So the shop is worth about 260. So once the project's done, you're looking at an end valuation of just over £1 million. Now, when you refinance that property, you will be doing so on a commercial mortgage, and you can get decent commercial loans at 70% loan to value. So if you remember from my cost slide, we were looking at about £615,000 in cost. So when you refinance this property on its end valuation on a 70% commercial mortgage, you basically have none of your capital tied up in the deal. That, ladies and gentlemen, is textbook bruh. Buy, refurbish, refinance, rent out and repeat. I've done a video on that explaining what I mean by that strategy. I'll put a link up over here, watch that afterwards. Now that is the holy grail of property investing. You basically buy a buy-to-let property, you buy a property, you do something to it, and then you rent it out, and then you pull out all your capital from the deal. Because if you don't do that, here's what will happen. You'll run out of money. Sooner or later, you'll run out of money and you won't be able to keep doing this. The only way of sustainably growing a buy-to-let portfolio is to have a strategy, to adopt a strategy where you can pull out all of your cash, you're good to go again, but the property you've bought, even though it has no cash tied up in the deal, it's producing you positive cash flow, a surplus income every month. So let's just wrap up and compare the traditional buy-to-let approach against the smart buy-to-let approach for 2022. So with traditional buy-to-let, this 2-bedroom purpose-built flat, at 3% yield, I've got to tie up £140,000 of my hard-earned money in that deal. I don't create any equity. It's not going to go up in value just instantly just by painting a few walls or adding a bit of furniture. It is what it is. So I'm creating no equity by purchasing this property. Now, after my mortgage costs, so I've assumed I'm borrowing 75% and I'm doing it at 3.5% interest rate on a 5-year fix, my net cash flow on that deal is £2,500 a year. It's not a lot really. But what is my return on cash? And by return on cash, I mean take your annual cash flow, divide it by the amount I've got in the deal, and my return on cash is 2%. Now with inflation this year running at 4 to 5%, well, that's hardly buttering any past it. What about this guy, the smart strategy for 2022? Well, you've got your yield on the whole building here at 8%. You've got none of your hard-earned cash tied up in the deal. That's zero. That is absolutely zero because, of course, you've refinanced and pulled your money out at the end of the project. And you're only able to do that because you've created £300,000 worth of equity in the deal. How have you done that? You've done that because you've taken low-value commercial property and used permitted development rights to convert that space into high-value residential property. That's where you've created that equity in a matter of months. And you've refinanced out of the deal because at the end of the day, banks won't let you have a 100% mortgage. They require you to have equity. But you can supply that equity from your own hard-earned cash, like in this side, in the unsmart way of doing things, or you can create that equity through your own skill and knowledge by applying permitted development rights to convert commercial to residential property. So for here, we've assumed a 70% loan-to-value commercial loan at 5% interest rate for these sort of calculations. And because you're producing a lot more rent from 2 flats and 1 shop, the net cash flow after servicing mortgage costs is 14 grand per annum. But here's the thing, because you have no cash invested in the deal, the return on your cash invested in that project is infinite. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a smart way to do buy-to-let in 2022. But to do that, you really need to be clued up on what these permitted development rights are. Now, I run an 8-week training course where I've taught hundreds of students my strategies for developing commercial properties and converting them into residential use, to do this strategy and keep on repeating it to build long-term wealth through building portfolios of buy-to-let properties like this. Now, I leave a link to that course and everything you can learn from that in the description below. But if you want a little bit of a taster session, and if you want to get on board with the sort of introductory session on how you can find these sort of deals, what sort of opportunities there are out there in the marketplace, and you want to see some real case studies of some of my past students of what they've achieved by implementing this strategy in just a matter of weeks, then sign up for my free 90-minute masterclass. I'll leave a link in the description below. So guys and girls, buy-to-let is great if you do it smartly, and this is the way to do it. I'll leave you with one other thought. that if you do live in the southeast of England, relatively high value areas, keeping your investments in your own backyard has another killer advantage, and that is long-term capital appreciation. Places up north and all of that don't appreciate as well as places in the south. If you can buy an asset which you can pull out all of your money, generate some positive cash flow, get an infinite return on cash, these are nice little units to retain for long-term capital appreciation, which you tend to get more of in the south. So tell me what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think about what I've said, and I hope that you join me and enhance your property investing game in 2022 on one of our commercial courses. See you guys in the next video. Bye for now. High streets across the land are changing forever. Basically, there's an oversupply of retail premises. Shops are closing down, more are going to close down in the future. The government know this, and that's why they're introducing a light touch planning system which allows small developers to easily repurpose these buildings to residential use under a light touch planning regime called permitted development. Now, this is going to be the biggest revolution and the biggest change and the biggest opportunity for property investors that I've ever seen. And this is all coming into effect on 1st of August. So you need to know what's happening and what properties to look for to take advantage of these opportunities so that you can get in there and take that first mover advantage. I've got a 90-minute free masterclass to get you ready for August the 1st. Make sure you join me, click the link below. Whether you're a beginner or expert, we'll get you started.